All right, who is hooked on the wide world of natural color? Raise your hand. Hi, this is Margaret Byrd and welcome to Color Quest. Every single week that I come here to work with you in exploring some new thing out there in the natural world of color, I am inspired and learning so much from my own creative practice. In today's video, I want to share with you something that I learned and used in my own art practice for a show that I had in Svalbard during my artist residency. And that is an incredible combination of mixing iron, tannin, and something called Calx. So join me today as we create some incredible prints using these three substances, and I think you're gonna love it. So as you probably know, over the last several weeks, we've been looking at the power of iron in the form of rust for making prints, but also introducing tannin into the mix in order to enhance those prints, because there's a beautiful interaction between iron or rust and tannin that brings blacks and grays and darkens things. So we created a ton of super interesting prints. Today, however, I'd like to mix it up a little bit. We're not going to be making rust prints, but I am going to be taking a rust print or two that I feel like could have a little extra pizzazz added to it. And I'd like to do some different kinds of binding in order for us to do a very simple process where we can make different kinds of prints and beautiful designs with just three things: iron, tannin, and calx, or calcium hydroxide. Now, calx is used in a few different ways in our natural dye studio. Probably the most common that you've heard of calx is for an indigo vat. It is the alkaline that's used to create that environment to welcome indigo onto fiber. Calx in today's video is going to have an interaction with the tannin and the iron, and it creates the most beautiful color. I had several examples of this in the show that I had in Longyearbyen, and the colors on different types of fiber is so exquisite. It has a range of being a mauve to a purple to an amazing gray, and it really depends a lot on all the factors, and you know what those can be. It can be time, it can be the fiber type, it can be how we fold and bind, and it's so cool. I just had to do more of it with you today. So you're gonna need some ferrous sulfate, so iron powder. You're gonna need calcium hydroxide, and you're gonna need a tannin of your choice. I am going to be using gallo tannin. It's a nice light tannin, but you can use any tannin that you might have access to. So go grab those three things and some different kinds of fibers, and let's start binding. So here's the fiber I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using this half sheet of a rusted print that I did on paper. I have a piece of scrap that was a part of some kind of a failed rust attempt long ago, and then another piece that got some okay shapes, but I figured we'll fold this up and add something by doing this process. And then I have two cotton pieces that I've already tied one in a Kumo fashion and one in a Ne-Maki fashion. And you can go back to see how to do this in a few videos under the Echo Printing tab. And specifically, this video is showing you how to tie on Kumo, and this video gave a demonstration of how to tie the Ne-Maki. I also have a silk piece that I rust printed. I really like how it turned out, but I have two pieces that have somewhat of a similar patterning, so I'm going to do a very simple gathering on this one as well. So for this piece, it's quite small, but I've done a few different resists using just clothespins, and I really love the very simple patterning it can make. So for this, I'm just going to do a quick accordion fold so that we have a few different places where we can simply clip our clothespins. All right, and that one is done. Very simple. This next piece is quite long. It doesn't have a lot of markings, so I'm just going to do a very simple gather fold, which just goes across the diagonal here, just kind of gathering those pieces together sort of loosely. And I'm going to do a little bit of a twist here, just like this. Make a little seashell, and we'll simply tie this with some rubber bands to keep it together and to add a little bit of resist there. Maybe I'll leave that loose. Why not? And you can move those around to try to give it some different spacing. Just something super simple like that as well. Now for this one, there's a fold that I have really come to love, and it's called the cloud fold. And for that, I'm just going to pinch in the center, and I'm going to start to gently gather these up in a sort of circle. Once I've gathered a few, I'm going to flip it onto the other side, and I'm going to continue to gather these in a circle. After I get a few in, I will flip it again, bring those in as well, making sure that I leave a little bit of space because we do want this to go into some of those nooks and crannies. But it is silk, so silk does tend to seep through pretty easily. We just have a little bundle like that as well. We'll tie it with some rubber bands. Also extremely simple tie. I like the random effect this one gives. All right, there you go. I almost forgot, we also have a piece of our rust dyed yarn. So we'll go ahead and put that into this process as well. So as we get ready to mix up our Tannin, Ferrous, sulfate, and Calx bath, I'm going to put the fiber that we've tied into wet out. As you know, working with wet fiber is always the way to go when you're working with natural dyeing or different processes. It removes the oxygen from the exterior of the fiber, which can act as a barrier, and it allows for the fiber to better receive anything that you're going to put it into. So we will let these sit and get good and wet for maybe 10 minutes while we make our 3 baths. So the first bath that we're going to make is a tannin bath. I'm going to be using gallo tannin for this, and I'm going to have to heat it on the stove for about 10 minutes. I have a dye pot here. I'm going to be filling this pot with 2 liters of water. So for every 2 liters of water, I'm going to use a tablespoon of tannin. I'm only using 2 liters because I don't have a lot of fiber. If you have more fiber, just increase the volume and do the same ratio with the tannin. I'm going to take a little bit of this water out. So I'm just going to put my tablespoon of tannin into this smaller bit of water so I can move it around, stir it up, and get rid of chunks. Tannin does like to ball up, and I want to make sure that I get it all dissolved the best that I can. I will add it back into the rest of the water, stir it, and then put it on the stove just to a simmer for about 10 minutes. Next up is our ferrous sulfate, or iron powder. You'll notice that I am wearing gloves when I handle this, as well as a mask. And I'm using a bowl that I have dedicated to iron water. I am adding a ½ liter of warm water, and I'm going to be adding a tablespoon of iron powder to this. Then I will top it off to make 2 liters of iron water. All right, the last bath that we're making is Calx, or calcium hydroxide. We're going to be doing this just in cold water, and I have 2 liters here, and I'm going to be adding 2 teaspoons of Calx directly into this. Again, I don't have much fiber, so I'm only working with small volumes of water. If you have larger, again, increase your volume of liters of water and then work with the same ratio. All of the fiber, I pulled it out. It's all nice and wet, and I've taken the tannin and put it into this bucket. It sat on the stove for about 10 minutes. We have our iron water back there, and we have our Calx here. Now the order is going to be tannin, iron, Calx. I have some utensils that I'm going to be using that I'm going to only use in each one. So this is my iron piece, so I'll use that to move things around in the iron, and I have these that I'll use for the tannin to remove them in. We don't want to contaminate across these, so don't put these utensils into other things. So we're going to start very simply by placing our pieces into the tannin. And we will move these around so they can get soaking in there. And we're going to let them soak for 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5. Some of these pieces might need some help being pushed down. And put this on top of that one. You can see that some of the pieces that already had rust or iron on them have already taken on a reaction with the tannin, but these pieces that have never seen iron have not. So it's going to be kind of interesting. We will let those sit. All right, now I'm going to take each piece and I'm going to put it into the Ferrous bath, being careful not to touch it with my tongs. That's pretty. Okay, now I'm going to put this in, move them around a little bit, and let them sit in this for 2 minutes. All right, I've washed these and I'm going to use them to remove carefully the paper. Now you could stop at this stage if you like this. I mean, that's super pretty. But I want to take it all the way into the Calx. So I will slowly be moving these into the Calx bath. And the change tends to be almost instant. And we're just going to move everything else out. Maybe I'll leave that one just partially in. As you can see, there's already this incredible change happening. So where the pieces are touching the Calx, it's changing to this sort of mauve-y color. Where it's not, it's staying the same. So I think I might just leave it like this. So we have a kind of a blend. We'll get some variation that way. You can put it all the way in to change it. You can just dip pieces if you want, or you can do what I'm doing and just kind of haphazardly seeing where it goes. These will sit here now for about 2 minutes. Okay, they've been sitting for about 2 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out. And I'm just going to gently lay them onto a towel so they can sit for, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. And we'll let them oxidize a bit. And then we'll see what we got. Very interesting indeed. All right, now these have been sitting here for 10 minutes, 15. I'm going to put them into rinse water to just rinse some of the excess off. We'll just let that sit in there and take it out in about 10 minutes and unwrap them. All right, let's start opening some of them to see what we got here. Wow. So bright. Look at that. Oh, I love it. Oh, wow. Loving this. Look at the different colors we got. Oh my. That is really spectacular. I absolutely love it. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, as I open each one, I'm going to be putting them into rinse one final time. Just have some rinse water here. And I'll do those just one at a time, just so we can get any excess off before we let these dry. So this is the cloud fold, and I really love it. And wow, look at that. We got these beautiful darks, some of the browns and grays, but then we still have that incredible, bright, vibrant rust print that we made. Lovely. Okay, now we have our Ne-Maki. This takes a little bit of time to undo. These are going to have these really beautiful rings. There you go. Beautiful. Nice diagonal shape across there. And just having those little hints of the gray. It's really pretty next to this sort of mauvish brown color. All right, we'll rinse and dry. And then we can see what we got. Okay, should we take a look at everything? I'm pretty excited about it. Here are all of the pieces. Let's just start with the paper first. So this turned out kind of cool. I had some tearing that went on. I like that little spot there. It has sort of a old weathered look to it. I really liked it when it came out of the iron, so maybe I wouldn't have taken it to the next step, but it's interesting. It definitely gives it a nice patina, sort of weathered look. I do think that the wool turned out pretty cool. So I dipped half of it in, so you can see that this is where I didn't dip it in. It left that continued iron gray, but then we got some really beautiful dark pieces here, and just a nice, I mean, look at that beautiful twist of a darker shade in there. Super pretty option. Definitely worth checking out. This piece was the clothespins piece, and how fun is this? It got a nice difference with keeping some of the iron in. If I decided that I didn't like this, then I could have put it all the way in, obviously, and it would have come to this sort of mauvish brown look. But I like the interaction between the two. That choice is completely up to you. You also could have left it, removed it after the iron, and left it this more gray purplish color. But it's kind of fun to see the differences there. This one I love, absolutely love it. So this, I used the cloud fold on a piece of previously rust printed. It was pretty much fully submerged. I think just some pieces didn't go all the way in, but we got such variation of color. Look at that. The pieces, some of the pieces on the inside where the iron soaked in, but the Calx didn't quite get in there, so we really got the gamut of colors in this one, and then those rusted spaces just intensified in this process. It looks absolutely beautiful. Silk, you know, silk is amazing. Okay, then we have, this one is the Kumo. We got some really cool spaces where we had no interaction at all because it was so bound tightly. So we've got the white, and then on the outside where we have these beautiful resist lines from the rubber bands, and then we also got a combination of color because some of it stayed hidden from the Calx, and so you can see that the Calx here made it this light sort of mauve brown, but we still have some of that purple gray left over from the iron. So we got a really nice combination of things here. Now we'll look at the next one. This was the Ne-Maki style, and again, this one got a lot more exposure to the Calx, but we still got flecks where it didn't quite get in, and we kept some of that iron tannin combo. This one turned out really pretty. I'm glad that I didn't submerge it entirely into the Calx so that I could have some of these differences. I think it got a nice balance of the two. And the last piece was this very boring piece of scrap that I had where there was a little bit of rust that had happened, and then I just did a very simple gathered fold on the diagonal, and look at all of the variations I got. Obviously this is on the inside where not as much of the tannin or the iron got in, but as it grades out, I mean, we've got all of these wonderful white resist lines. Some of the iron, obviously, or the rust popped so much more after being introduced into this environment. And then we've got these beautiful color differences with the Calx and with areas where the Calx couldn't reach in. So we really made that piece of fiber pop in a way from something that was less than interesting. Well, there you have it. We're gonna wrap up about 6 or 7 videos worth of investigating and exploring the beautiful possibilities with printing with iron in its rusted form and combining it with things like tannins and calx in order to just make so many more options for you to work with different designs and prints on fiber. It's been an incredible set of videos for me as well, and I'm just so excited by working in this way. So I hope you have enjoyed this, and get out there, find your rusty bits and start experimenting. Try some different tying, binding, and mixing and matching these processes. I mean, look at what we've created. Now next week on Color Quest, I have bought this beautiful winter dye kit from a local artist here in Seattle who makes beautiful eco printed fibers, and she's selling kits now. So I thought it would be a fun way to bring a little natural color light into my world and yours as well. It is the alkaline that's used